But he was basically talking about, here we go. He was basically talking about his version of Batman and the biggest criticism he was getting about his Batman, where, that's one thing I definitely criticize him for too, is he decided to make Batman a killer, and he kills, and that's also kind of part of his arc. He starts off as a killer, and then he learns to, I guess, not do that, or he still does that by the end. I'm kind of confused as you, but he explains his thought process on it, and people thought this is exactly why Zack should have never have done Batman, and I just want to give my thoughts on it. I would play for you the clip, but since on the Joe Rogan podcast it will get claimed, those things usually do get claimed. So, anyways, he says here, people are always like, Batman can't kill, so Batman can't kill is canon. And I'm like, okay, well, the first thing I want to do when you say that is, I want to see what happens. And they go, well, don't put him in a situation where he has to kill someone. And I'm like, well, that's just like you're protecting your God in a weird way, right? You're making your God irrelevant for Batman fans. Has to maintain their godlike status. Okay. So basically he was saying, well, if you tell me that this character's whole thing is that he can kill, well, then I want to see him kill, and I want to know what that's about. There's two sides of this. For one, I do understand the creative thought process behind that, and I do kind of like what Zack Snyder's talking about there, because I don't have the book here with me, it's downstairs. But like I recently mentioned, I read Superman Kingdom Come, because James Gunn mentioned that's like a book that's, well, he didn't mention, but it's heavily implied that it's one of the books that's inspiring his new Superman movie, and wow, I loved it. But in that book, it's about Superman retiring. And in my mind, before I even read that book and knew what it's about, if you told me, is Superman a character that would ever retire? I'd tell you no. Superman would never retire. His whole thing is protecting people, being there for them. Why would he retire? That's not in his thing. So what did Alex Ross and Mark Waid do? They went, well, I'd like to see a world where Superman retires. What's that story look like? And I think you get interesting stories come out of that when you put characters in an opposite position. Even recently with Spider-Man, for the longest time, not that this is what fans have created, but it's what Marvel does, where Marvel doesn't like to make Spider-Man grow up. Spider-Man can only be a teenager because that's the only time he's interesting. And if you make Spider-Man an adult who gets married or has a job, he's boring. But now we have Miles Morales and Spider-Gwen and all those others. They're finally letting Spider-Man grow up. And that's what made me read this comic that recently came out, where we see Spider-Man, Peter Parker, who's married with 2 kids and whatnot. And it became one of the best selling comics of this year so far. And it's because that's finally interesting. You're subverting a standard norm that you've set up with a comic character. So yes, I do understand Zack's process with that, and I applaud him for trying to take that. I even really like his Man of Steel, where he had Superman kill Zod. I love that element in the movie. I understand why some people don't, and I definitely do not want to see that kind of stuff in James Gunn's Superman. I would want a more happy, always solves the problem kind of Superman. But the thought process behind that, where Superman just didn't know what to do, he made a mistake, he made a human error, and now he had to deal with that trauma. Loved it. Okay. But on the other side of that, this was the start to a cinematic universe. This was going to be a lot of people's first time Batman. This was going to be the Batman that represents your Justice League, your cinematic universe as a whole. Probably not the best time to then create a subverted version of that character. And it almost feels like that's what he was wanting to do with every member of the Justice League. Because you can't look at Jason Momoa the first time he was revealed as Aquaman and go, perfect, that's Aquaman. I love Jason Momoa. I like James Wan's Aquaman movies. I think he's still miscast, and that's not a version, but I bet that was him wanting to subvert Aquaman, get a little different with it, and it worked out for some people, sometimes doesn't. It'd be like if he saw The Flash, wanted to make a movie, and he's like, okay, The Flash has to be the fastest person on the screen. That's canon, Zack Snyder, okay? You tell me he's the fastest person. I want to make him the slowest person. Oh! Subverting doesn't always mean you're going to stumble upon gold. So I do think it was a mistake to do that into the introduction of a Batman into this universe. There's elements of Ben Affleck Batman I so enjoy, and he got better along the way. But I do think when starting a universe, that was a mistake, to give us an old Batman, to give us a weathered down one that had so much history. Felt like there was different ways you could have done it. So I do understand why some people are mad, and if you ask me, I prefer the Batman who doesn't kill. I prefer that thought process. I think, let me see here. I think I had, oh, sorry, didn't mean to click on that. I think I had here, let me see if I can find it, Chris Parker. I liked someone's tweet, and they worded it best. In fact, it's the writer of Minions. This is the writer of Minions and Secret Life of Pets, Brian Lynch, who's actually a fan of the channel. Hey, Brian. He said here, I like Snyder, but I disagree. You should absolutely put Batman in a situation where he has to kill to get out of it, but here's the fun twist. You have to find a way to not kill because he's Batman. That's what I agree with. That's always kind of the smart thing with Batman. You put him in these impossible, crazy scenarios, but he gets out of it because he's Batman, and that becomes more fun to me. I don't know, or more intriguing. I for sure know the versions or the iterations of Batman where he does that are the ones I find the most compelling. So although I didn't end up hating his version of Batman and whatnot, I see why it's irksome people, and why early on when I first saw Batman vs Superman, did not like the movie. I was actually pissed. It was like, what I've mentioned it before. It's like one of the early origin stories for why I wanted to make this channel, because I just so badly wanted to be telling you my thoughts on why I thought it was a bad version of Batman. Over time, I've liked it better, and the Ultimate Cut has helped it out. And now that I see the full 3-story arc from Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman, and Zack Snyder's Justice League, which I think are actually great movies all together, I see what he was doing. But yeah, that's just my thought on it. And I think the DCU Batman for sure is going to have to play into the no-kill rule. I think it's going to be a much more traditional Batman, or at least kind of like the ideal Batman most people have in their heads, a detective, probably a happier version of Batman. And not to say Batman needs to be happy. I like the dark and sad Batman, like, Robert Pattinson's. But, maybe it's time again to get an Adam West style Batman, a more happier, one who smiles. It leans in a little bit more to the fantastical sides, has villains with superpowers instead of always making them grounded. That's the fun of these comic book characters. You switch them up, but that's just my thought. I'm curious to see what you guys are saying. Maybe some of y'all are yelling at me right now. Batman did had an arc when he went from killing to not killing. If you're talking about in this version, I think he did, and that's what made me grow onto him a little bit more. And it seemed like he did get better, but I just think that's a weird way to start out your universe. Let's see here. Ben Affleck Batman got better along the way when Zack stopped directing the movies. I still think Zack had cool. I cannot deny his visual style. I do love it. I just wish Zack would maybe let other people sometimes rein in on the stories, but his visual style is unmatched. I definitely think these movies are just going to continue to age better visually, and in like a couple of years, when they continue to stress out these VFX workers with time crunches and horrible green screens, we're going to look back at these movies and go, dude, these looked like they were made by gods. Why can't comic book movies look like this? At least in my opinion. I love Zack's Batman. See, so other people like him. So yeah, that's all. Can I go to your wedding when I about to? Yeah. No. I hate Adam West. Hey, a lot of people love the Adam West version. Matt Reeves, huge fan of the Adam West version, and he modeled the Pattinson mask after it. But yeah. Okay. Let's see. So that's all we got right now. Well, I'm curious to see how different the DCU Batman will differentiate from Robert Pattinson's, Ben Affleck's. Be interesting stuff. All right, let's move on now to some other things here. I'm Batman. Just seeing everybody in there. All right, let's talk about the Godzilla Kong stuff.